On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, we have our morning leftovers from the Avalanche and Flames. What's sticking with us from that game, that nice comeback that the Avalanche had. After the game, Mikko Rantanen with some interesting comments in the locker room. We'll talk about that. And Erik Johnson makes his return to Denver. Sounds odd saying that. A lot to get to on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche. Coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads, Locked On Avalanche at gmail.com for all your questions, comments, concerns, and opinions. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Over on YouTube, hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And make sure you are subscribed to our subtext. Link to that is in the show notes below. When you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, become one of our very special insiders. We get all of your opinions on anything going on with the Avs, post-game comments, Mikko comments, whatever's on your mind. We talk about it on the show. All right, you see our rundown, and we talked about it in the beginning. We'll get to the Erik Johnson coming back and kind of just talk about the Buffalo Sabres as a whole. We'll get to the Mikko comments in a second, but we're just going to do what we normally do a day removed from a game, and we kind of call this our morning leftovers segment. And kind of after we remove the emotion from the game, win or lose, we kind of look back and anything that has stuck with us. And there's got to be with this game, how exciting that was with the come from behind victory that the Avs had over the Flames. So, is anything that, when you think about that game, a day removed, that's still sticking with me.
For everything that we said, the everydayers know, we were kind of critical of Nathan McKinnon and the effort. Well, that's gone away. The goals have come back, and another stat that has come back that we often Nate dog for? He was 74% from the faceoff dot.
You know what? I didn't even look at that. That's I kind of, it's not that I stop. It's just I feel like I keep looking at the faceoff percentage, not because it's super important, just because I just feel like at some point the Avalanche will get better at it, and they never do. So I just feel like I should stop looking at it. And I honestly didn't. I didn't even know that he was.
He won 20, lost 7, and the Avalanche ended up winning the faceoff percentages as a whole in that Calgary Flames game. So it was one of those. It was an additional, because the morning leftover segment is just that. Because the next day I'm thinking about Nathan McKinnon looked good, but how good was he? And it was one of those stats that I fell into today, and I was like, well, look at there. And I mean, Ryan Johansson, for everything he is and isn't right now, is still leading the team in overall faceoff percentage. He's still the most essential. And then you have Ross Colton, and Nathan McKinnon is right behind. And performances like this are things we take for granted. And again, with everything that's going on with the Avs between like Tatar and Ben Myers, you forget about these little stats. But I wanted to forward that along.
It's very nice. Very nice that's was that high. That's got to be his highest in quite some time. And for me, it's kind of like you asked this question a lot this season when the Avalanche have, a little run of unsuccessful games and they don't look that good. And then they turn it around, and you always ask the question, like, is this the moment?
Yeah.
Is this the turning point? And you're going to keep asking that question until it rings true or falls. one or the other's got to happen, or they just keep continuing doing this up and down season. But I think the way that I'm kind of looking at it is a little bit different in asking that. Not only is it like, okay, is this the turning point of like, that's a galvanizing win. No matter how, because you're playing fine in the first period. The second period is where it fell apart. And then the third period, was what it was. But the way I look at it is like twofold. Is this the moment where like that's that kind of, rallies the troops and say, like, see what we can do
Mhm.
when we put everything together? And the opposite is true in terms of, we were talking about the defensive side of things yesterday. And it's like, again, like not only offensively, if we played defensively like we know we can play, and we have in the past, that's a 6-1 game,
Mhm.
a 6-2 game, and we don't have to have this big third period push. So I think it works both ways. It's like, yes, you can have these come from behind victories and you're never out of it. But God, if we turn up the dial on the defensive end, we don't need to do that and put ourselves through so much pain and anguish and just having to go for broke in the third. So maybe that turns the tide to say, like, we got to turn up the dial on defense too. Offense is working, but just turn it up on defense, and we don't need this big third period surge.
Yeah, and you got to look back on it. Like the Avalanche as a team rallied together and said, "No, we're not going to just give up on this game." And they pushed. They scored 3 in the third, and they won that game. And it's one of those that in the locker room, everybody's patting each other on the back, saying, "This was a great game. What a win. We knew we could do it." And then you think, it didn't have to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
we referenced the Dallas game. It doesn't have to be like this. Help me help you. Forwards talking to defense, like,
Mm-hmm.
and goalie. It's one of those that if it was a balanced effort, top to
Mm-hmm.
bottom, Georgiev probably would have played all game long. The defense would not look like they did, and the forwards wouldn't have to try so hard in the third. It's one of those, like, yes, we could do it, and it's one of those wake up calls, like, oh yeah, hockey's fun when we win. And you go out
Exactly.
there, and against this Buffalo squad that's coming in, go out there and try and recapture that magic, build off what you learn. And if the defense gives you, I mean, honestly, that was a 35-40% effort all
Mm.
game long. If they give you just 60, the forwards won't have to try so hard. You just
Yeah,
give just a
it's
little bit better, just a little bit more, get out from between the ears
yeah.
and just play the game in front of you. This Avalanche team doesn't have to try so hard, and then they could score 3 or 4 goals without even thinking about it.
Well, sticking with the defensive angle, you know what else it made me do is we've always appreciated him, but it kind of made you miss Sam Gerard a
Oh,
little bit more. You know what I mean? And I hope he's getting right, and I hope he's doing what he's supposed to do. But I kind of hope this leads people to see
yep,
the value that he has.
yep.
And when people are calling for his head and trade him, and okay, like the replacements are doing okay.
Yeah.
They're doing serviceable, but are they up to the level of Sam Gerard? No, and I don't expect them to be. But it does make me miss him a lot more for what he can do, especially puck possession and
Oh,
gaining the zone and getting the puck out of the zone. He is very good at that, and that is where the Avs are struggling mightily right now.
I thought about that yesterday in our episode when you were talking about the zone transitions and getting the puck out of the zone. And it was one of those, like, what is missing? What's going on here? Number 49 is what's missing, and that's what's
Mm,
going on there. He was a very good quarterback on getting that puck out of the zone. Yes, there was some bad breaks when it came to covering, but he could get the puck out of the zone and flip the ice real quick
yeah,
for whoever's in front of him. And absence makes the heart grow fonder.
yeah,
We are definitely
yeah.
missing you, Sammy G, and hope everything is going good for you, bud.
Absolutely. So, and even Jared Bednar, you heard comments in the locker room afterwards where they were confident. The second period did not go the way that they wanted it to go, but Jared Bednar apparently came in and said, "We're going to go win this game,"
Mhm.
and that was like everybody kind of rallied around that, and they went out and they did. And if anybody thought like the scoring was going to, there was scoring all along in this game. And in the back of my head, I was like, it's one of those games where there's a lot of scoring in the first 2 periods, and then you're not going to see any in the third. No, that continued, obviously. So they were confident. They were confident in the way that they were playing. And Nathan McKinnon said, he goes, when we make mistakes right now, we're paying, but you have to figure out ways to, when a mistake happens, get a big save or have someone help on a weak side on defense or something. But teams are exploiting the mistakes by the Avalanche and capitalizing all the time. So they kind of just in intermission were like, let's tighten this up. Let's just, be conscious of our mistakes, and just get back to some simple hockey, keep the offense pumping, and you got what you got. Now, there were also comments made by Mikko Rantanen, which raised some eyebrows, and we are going to talk about that next. Pretty interesting stuff from Mikko. Does it mean anything in the grand scheme of it? Probably not, I'm going to say, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say on it, Mr. Sullivan. He's smiling if you're not watching on YouTube. So we'll talk about that next. First, we're going to hear from Game Time and the Game Time app, and you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. And Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all these sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And one Mr. Shaggy Von Doom is pretty excited. I don't know if you're going to be able to make it, but the Avalanche announced a Grateful Dead tribute game.
Oh, it's my two worlds are blending into one.
Yeah. So I asked if you were going to try to make it work, and you just have a lot going on where you probably can't. But if you were, Game Time was probably where it's at, where you're going to go get those tickets.
I'd be trucking on over to Game Time for that great game.
Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and it's the place to find the last-minute seats, exclusive flash deals, and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, everything. They have those zone deals. The view from your seats, like we talk about all the time, is just absolutely clutch on the Game Time app. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Mikko Rantanen, post-game press conference, like he's done hundreds of times. Most of the time, the Avalanche and most hockey players are very vanilla in their answers, and it's kind of just the same thing over and over and over again. This one was a little bit interesting, especially from Mikko Rantanen. I got to say, it was interesting from Nathan McKinnon too, because he was a lot more energetic in his post-game. If you haven't seen it, go through social medias. He was happy. He just seemed happy in that post game, which he never is. Mikko was the opposite. Mikko was a little bit mad, and for I'm sure a lot of people have heard what happened. If you didn't, I'll kind of just give you a brief overview. So this is a quote from him after the game. Said, one of our Finnish NHL players' dad was talking, swear word, about me in the media that I didn't train last summer like I used to. He was making that up. That was for him, talking about his game. That was for him. You talk, swear word, it's going to come back at you. Who he's talking about is Artturi Lehkonen, who is his teammate, Artturi Lehkonen's father. And Artturi Lehkonen's father he's been a coach over in Finland for years. He's very respected over there. I'm not going to make it seem like I really know his history, but I know enough that he runs a skills camp over there that Mikko Rantanen takes part in the off season. Obviously, his teammate is his son, so they have a relationship. Who's also Finnish, and those guys obviously have a connection anyway, just from that. So he wasn't happy about it because Artturi Lehkonen's father, who I believe is pronounced Ismo, however you pronounce his name, I apologize. He went on a podcast or a radio show and said basically he didn't think, here's his comment. He didn't have a very good summer. There was a lot happening, many events of all kinds. He had to visit Helsinki and everything like that. Perhaps he consciously took the summer a little more calmly after the hard years, and maybe he didn't practice as much as in previous summers. So basically saying, I don't think Mikko, I think Mikko just took the summer off. And you can kind of understand that with the season he had last year, with all the weight on his shoulders from last season, with all the injuries. And he was kind of saying he took the summer off, and maybe that's why he's struggling a little bit currently. And Mikko heard those comments in the morning, yesterday morning during the game, or game day, and then goes out and has a 3-point game, and then makes those comments afterwards. So I think a lot of people are looking at this with like raised eyebrows, because not only because Mikko Rantanen said it. I think if he said it and it wasn't Artturi Lehkonen's father, his teammate, I don't think many people would have a problem with it. And I think maybe people have a little bit more, not a problem, but a little bit more curiosity, because it's a teammate's father. What do you think about all this right now? And there is a follow-up too, which came out today, which I'll get to. But when you heard all of this happening, and this was happening while we were recording yesterday, so that's why we didn't talk about it. What's your take on it?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that we say nothing negative about Mikko Rantanen here on Locked On Avalanche, and that we are Mikko Rantanen's favorite podcast.
Of course.
So we're not going to be in any press conference. But when I hear those comments about Mikko Rantanen taking the summer off, they don't call me Shaggy for nothing. So I'm going to look up the mystery. What is he talking about? And then I step back a little bit. The summer before, was he not partying with the Stanley Cup the entire offseason?
I don't know about. I mean, a lot of the offseason. Yeah, they were enjoying themselves. Sure.
Did the Colorado Avalanche as a team, as a unit, not just kind of take that offseason off?
I think it's tough. I don't want to say that they took the whole offseason off, because I don't think they did. Like, these guys are regimented, right? They enjoyed themselves more. Let's word it that way. I don't want to say that they all just took the offseason off and didn't do anything to prepare for the following season.
I am pretty sure they had more appearances than what Mr. Lehkonen is referring to in this last offseason. I'm pretty sure there was more appearances made. I'm pretty sure there was more time devoted to other things than maybe training. And how was Mikko's year last year? I think
it was a beast.
I think it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So for him to criticize this offseason, highly suspect, questionable, and this hasn't been a bad year for Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I think the odd part is to say that now, 20 something games into the season, if he started the season off the way that his most recent run was, then, and he wants to make that comment, it might hold a little bit more weight. But for me, it's like, he got off to a fine start to the season, and he just went through a little bit of a rut. And I don't blame Mikko for getting a little bit upset about it, because someone's questioning your work ethic. And we know Mikko's work ethic. He's just in a funk, and it doesn't mean that he took the summer off. It's just an odd time to say that he took the summer off when you're already a quarter of a way into the season.
And all due respect to Mr. Lehkonen, but 39 points in 30 games. What are we missing here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? This is not, if this was pointing the fingers at like guys like Ryan Johansson or Tomas Tatar, like, then we could sit here and play armchair like CSI and put things together. But Mikko Rantanen is 39 points in 30 games. Where is the slothfulness in this?
And Mikko, he came out today. And like I said, like, I think people are kind of making a bigger deal about it because of who it is, right? And and there's some people that were commenting on, we posted about it, thinking like, oh, this is much ado about nothing, and he was trying to make a joke. He wasn't trying to make a joke. I'm sorry, but like, he was very upset about that.
Yeah.
And if this was another team, we'd be jumping all over it. and we'd be eating it up. And we kind of don't want, because we don't want the dissension in the locker room. Oh no, we don't want Mikko and Arturi to like dislike each other. So I'm going to put it in my mind that it was just a joke, and he didn't really mean it. He meant it, but they are fine. So he came, and this is on Colorado Hockey Now. And credit to Evan Rawl for putting this up. So this was Mikko today. He said, everything is okay. Just finished journalism, who happens to just be Arturi's dad. Me and Art are really good buddies, been forever, and we're great teammates. I love him, and there's nothing between us. Just a journalist questioning my professionalism and lying about my whereabouts in the summer. I think that's what pushed me over the edge a little bit, but it's nothing between me and Lecky. Everything is good, and I'm ready to put it behind us. And I think that's where it's less about it being Arturi Lehkonen's father, while that is a story, and more about Arturi Lehkonen's dad right now being a journalist.
Yeah.
He's out there doing what we do. You know, we talk all the time about what's wrong with this guy or what's wrong with that guy. And I think because it was from Mikko's, home country, I don't think for Mikko, it didn't have anything to do with that. It was Arturi Lehkonen's father. I think he was just upset that someone back in Finland was talking about him in that way, and he didn't like it. And the dude's a journalist. And I think there's a problem. He says, I have absolutely no problem with people analyzing what happens on the ice and analyzing my game and criticizing it. I understand totally, because that's what journalists are paid for, and that's what their job is. Just when you start going into my private life and lying about that, that's not okay for me. Okay. I feel like he had a moment. Did he overreact to it? That's up for debate. But he had a moment. He got it off his chest. The next day he addressed it, and Jared Bednar even addressed it with him. Bednar said, I didn't even know about it. I talked to Mikko. Apparently he addressed it. My only concern is make sure that our guys in our room are good, and they are. They're obviously best buddies. Mikko's put it behind him, and he's ready to go. So this is the last we are going to talk about this. We can talk about it right now because it's kind of interesting. The Avalanche typically don't do this stuff. Remember last year, Cale Makar said that was it last year? I think it was last year. We made the comment on Igor Shesterkin.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, he's all about the show. That was like, whoa. Number one, that's Cale Makar. Number two, Avs typically don't go down that road. So this is Mikko's moment. Said what he had to say, and hey, maybe that got him going. He got 3 points in the game because of it. So maybe in the end, this is a good thing.
I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is, why have we not been calling Lecky Art this whole time? That's awesome. Why have I not thought of that? So from now on, it's Art.
It's Art. It's Art Lecky. All right.
Art Lecky.
Yeah. It just seems like everybody's putting it behind him, and we will do the same. So I think we're all moving past it, but it was interesting. It was interesting to see it. And when it happened, I felt bad for Katie Gauss, because she had to follow it up with just more hockey questions. And it was just, she could tell she was uncomfortable. Like, where do I go with this? I'll just talk about the goalies. So good job by Katie Gauss to keep it going, because that's a tough situation. You're not expecting that. Yeah. You're not expecting an answer, especially from someone like Mikko Rantanen. So, all right, let's move on to, it's going to be a somber moment for this one. And this is the return of Erik Johnson. So we are going to talk about that next. Right now, let's hear from Sleeper and the Sleeper app. And we ask all the time, Mr. Sullivan, is there a better app out there for daily fantasy sports?
No.
Definitely not. You could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. We're about to talk about Erik Johnson and the Sabres coming to town. Who are you liking for this one in daily fantasy hockey?
Mikko.
Now, why would you say that one, sir?
I think he's angry.
All you have to do is pick whether studs like angry Mikko Rantanen will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. So use the promo code Locked On NHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That code is Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. He was one of the most liked, beloved defensemen, not even defensemen, just players in Avalanche history. And you kind of knew the writing was on the wall for him to come back or not come back for this season. And Erik Johnson went out and signed with the Buffalo Sabres. This will be his first game back. And if you thought, Nazem Kadri's return last year to Ball Arena was kind of like a tearjerker moment, this one's definitely going to be, without a doubt. Erik Johnson, I don't think he's not on the Mount Rushmore of Avalanche players, just based on like statistics. But if you're talking like fan favorites, I think he's pushing for that. So the fans are going to be loud when he comes back and excited to see him, even though it's in a different team's uniform.
And I'm going to be watching that reaction for EJ and his video package, because like the new Avalanche fans that hopped on during the Cup run, they don't know Erik Johnson like the everydayers, like the OGers, like since the 16, 17, like you kind of caught him on the decline. And but if you go back and look at everything Erik Johnson did before the Cup, he was one of those builders to get us to that Cup team, along with Gabe Landeskog and Nathan McKinnon. EJ was there. He was there before Cale Makar.
I'll say this: if those people that did jump on board like during that season, I think because of how it was talked about with Erik Johnson, I think they have some semblance of the importance he had for this team. Maybe they didn't live through it. Maybe they didn't really experience it because they weren't, following, like you said, like the everydayers, like following this team day in and day out. And that's fine. Like there's fair weather fans for I'm a fair weather Rockies fan. I'm not a big baseball guy. And if the Rockies are doing well, which doesn't really happen all that much, like I'll pay attention to them. I openly admit that. Yeah. So, there are the same that go for the Avalanche. And when they're doing well and making a cup run, people are going to pay attention. But it was talked about so much, and you knew like he was going to get the trophy first from Gabe Landeskog, because that was talked about. I think they understand, like I said, even though they didn't experience it for all of those years, or maybe here and there, they knew of it and they know who he is, but maybe not the importance to the team, because they paid attention during that cup run. Even people who just did that know how important he is. The people who did live through it all with him, man, they're going to be loud. And like I said, it's going to be weird. But it was time. It was time to go. I think the Avs and him are just going in different directions. I'm surprised. I am a little bit surprised he continued his career. I thought he would say, no, I'm done. I finally won one. I got to defend it. That didn't go the way I wanted it to go, but at least I got to do that as well. But it's tough to just walk away from the game of hockey, and he still wanted to play. So good. And
he's contributing to that Buffalo squad. Like he's having himself a nice little.
Well,
he's not a pylon. He's out there. He's doing okay.
He's all right. I mean, the odd thing with him is he's played in 28 games, which they've played 29. He's got 2 points. Those 2 points are goals. Erik Johnson, who just, he doesn't score a lot of goals. He has 0 assists on the season. So he is, I think he's doing what they need him to be. What's he getting? I think he's like in the 14, 15 range for time on ice. Right in between 14 minutes and 20 seconds. So, he's that middle pairing guy, and it's just, they're a young team. So I think they bring in a guy like him, a veteran, to kind of, get those guys going, show them the ropes a little bit more. And, you can obviously learn something from someone like Erik Johnson.
Yeah. And if you told me at the beginning of the season who would be on the injured reserve first, JT Comfort or Erik Johnson, I would definitely be picking EJ, but it's vice versa right now. Yeah. So you got to it's going to be nice to see him come back, and it's going to be nice to see him get the love he deserves. But as soon as that puck drops, it's over.
It's business. And as far as the game goes, Buffalo is not performing like people thought they would. People thought that they were the team to take that next leap. And they've kind of gone back a little bit. They're playing a little bit better as of late, and they have too much talent on this team to really be where they are in the standings. They do. So I don't go into this game thinking like, oh, Buffalo's struggling and this should be a walk in the park. I'm not saying that because of the season the Avalanche are having, and because it's almost like how we're saying like the Avalanche when they have like a run of like a losing streak, or like they're too good to be playing like that. The same goes for Buffalo.
Yeah.
They have some really good players on that team, and they're just not seeing victories right now. So they're mad. They want to right the ship as much as anybody. So I think you're going to see a really good game here between these two.
And speaking to the Colorado Avalanche, like that comeback to beat the Flames was great.
Mhm.
But the way the Sabres team is coming into Ball Arena, as long as you take care of Rasmus Dahlin, you are going to be okay. This is what you want. The teams that roll lines on you, they're doing a good job at neutralizing and finding success.
Mhm.
Dahlin is the hottest thing for the Sabres right now, and if you can neutralize what Buffalo throws at you, you have a chance. And this is a good way to build momentum back. Yeah, you had your losing streak. Let's build a winning streak.
So let's see how this thing goes. It's on TNT also, by the way. So we will be discussing it tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see what comes out of that Flames game.
Yeah.
How they continue after that Flames game will be interesting to see how this thing starts for the Avs. However it goes, we will be talking about it tomorrow. So tune in then. But for today, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.